Well, folks, I hope you brought your thinking caps this morning because it's time. Oh, yeah, it's time. That's a throwback intro, by the way. If you remember that intro, congratulations. You are an OG here on the channel. Welcome to Prepper Nation, by the way. I am John. Thank you for watching, for listening, for subscribing to the channel. Truly helps us grow, helps the platform. YouTube does enough to kick us and keep us down. And so we fight back as best we can, right? Dan Phillips, thank you, brother, for the mean bean this morning, for sponsoring. That's truly appreciated. Got a little bit, excuse me, of housekeeping to take care of. Then we're going to get straight into this morning's topic. Number one, if you're on Patreon or in the coffee club, those links are down below, by the way. There's going to be an exclusive live stream about an hour after this video posts called the After Party. So if you want to join us, feel free to join us. Again, those links are down below. And number two, the rundown. Thank you for everybody that checked that out yesterday. It looks like it's going to be a 5-day-a-week deal. The next rundown will cover comments from this morning's live stream and also the replay crowd comments. And it's going to drop tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Saturday. So that's awesome. All right, let's get into it. It's time. It's time to pick your camp. And I'm going to explain to you, hopefully, what I'm talking about this morning. Otherwise, it's been a total miss and I laid an egg, right? It happens. So, there are crazy spiderweb cracks beginning to happen all over the place. Geopolitics. We've talked for months and months and months about how countries have positioned themselves. They're positioning pieces of war. They're getting war chests together. We're starting to see cracks now. Y'all know the stuff, break glass in case of emergency. The glass is beginning to break. There's just a strange vibe. And I know, look, I know it's a prepping channel, right? So anytime somebody says, "Ooh, boogie woogie," there's a strange vibe. People think it's fear porn, but I'm telling you, I cannot shake this vibe. Something is about to happen. Something is about to kick off. And I've got it narrowed down to one of two things. All right. Um, Again, if you were in the rundown, we ran a poll on this and the results were overwhelming. But let's chat about it this morning. So there was a UN meeting this week. Biden was there, of course, talking about we need to support Ukraine no matter what, just keep sending money. We covered that. Zelensky was talking about climate change, which was very strange. Yesterday, Poland's prime minister, who has a really ridiculous name, no offense to the guy, I can't pronounce it with my heathen self. But you can Google him, the prime minister. He said Poland is not sending any more aid to Ukraine, and this shocked NATO. This because look, NATO is stacked up in Poland right now. That is the jump off spot. We've got 100,000 plus over there stacked up. We've got tanks, we've got missile systems, and he just said it outright. He said no more aid from Poland is going to Zelensky in Ukraine. Our mainstream media here in the United States is reporting this is because of grain embargoes, meaning Poland does not want to starve, and they're not going to get any grain from Russia, Ukraine, yada yada, unless they back off. But I don't believe that's what's going on, because here's Poland's prime minister's own words. All right, this is why how he explained this decision. He says, and this is very telling. I'm gonna explain why. So he said, we must be cautious when saving a drowning person because when someone is drowning, he's talking about Ukraine here. They're desperate and they will grab a hold of anything or anyone that they can, and there's potential that you're going to be pulled down with them. And he goes, and drowned along with them. And he goes on to say, Poland will not drown with Ukraine. Um, and that the money and weapons that have been going to Ukraine are now going to stay in Poland, and they're going to bolster their own military up. So again, this is very telling for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's addressing the UN, but he's also addressing NATO. He's letting NATO know, you're not going to tear our country up. This is not the jump off spot. You need to find you another hood, son. This is not the place. We are not going to tear our country up and be the reason for World War III. Now, there were just war games last week or a week and a half ago, maybe in Poland, and maybe this guy got the vibe by watching the war games. The NATO's getting ready for World War III, and he doesn't want any part of it. But the other telling sign is the fact that he referred to Ukraine as a drowning person. He is saying on a worldwide stage, Ukraine is done. They have no shot of winning this war. It's a lost cause. You know what I'm saying? At some point, the CPR no longer works and it becomes a cadaver at some point. And he's saying, we're not going to continue to fund this insanity and perhaps be the flashpoint for World War III. We're just not interested. So this leaves me with two questions. Number one, will other NATO countries that have very little interest in this war also quit on Ukraine? Will they take, now that Poland's done it, the first country has stepped up and said, we're not doing this anymore. Germany's been on the fence for a while now, but there are other countries that probably just aren't interested in getting into a World War III. Will they follow suit? I happen to believe they will. And number two, will Joe Biden and the other world leaders that stick around with Ukraine, are they now going to send even more funding and more weapons because they've got to make up for this shortfall? Every country that leaves, there's a shortfall. There's a gap that has to be made up by the rest of these countries. So are we now on the hook for more? Are we going to be sales pitch that in Congress? Look for that. So this needs to be mentioned as well. There was a a popular separatist leader and figurehead of Indian descent. He's in Canada, or he was. He was killed this week in British Columbia. And there was an investigation by the Canadian authorities that took around 2 days, I might add, just 2 days. And Sparkly Socks, who is, of course, the prime minister or president or whatever of Canada, directly pointed the finger at the Indian government. The government of India, he said, they're responsible. We have a concrete evidence. He never released this evidence. He hasn't given it to the government of India or anybody else. He just said, we found, again, within the span of 24 hours, concrete evidence that the Indian government was behind this, that it was a political assassination. In response, India accused Canada of being one of the largest harbors of terrorism. They basically went on record and said, don't point the finger at us. You folks are allowing terrorists in your country to operate freely. And each one began pulling its diplomats out. I mean, seriously, these two are on the verge of war for whatever reason over this one individual, I guess. And the thing to remember here is they are, or they were, I suppose, allies. If World War III would have kicked off 2 weeks ago, these two countries would have been in the trenches together. And now they're at each other's throats. And Russia and China and North Korea and Iran, they've got to be sitting back, licking their chops, because everybody wants India on their side. They are the new superpower, which I'll get into in a moment. But they've got to be sitting back like, forget about Canada, forget about the West. Come over here with us. We got what you need over here with the BRICS system. We've got your grain. We've got your oil. We'll take care of you in a wartime situation. It's crazy. South Korea, worth mentioning, this past week openly threatened North Korea. Now, North Korea threatens all the time, but for South Korea to be brazen enough to do this, they basically said, if one missile heads our way, we're going to annihilate your country. We're going to annihilate North Korea. Now, this could be talking tough. This could be dependent heavily on the United States. It's time to pick your camp because one of two things is happening. Either Poland has provided an off ramp for countries to get out of this mess. We've been talking about how we're basically locked into World War III and there's no getting out of it. Poland just opened the door. Any country that's not interested can walk the same path and say, you know what? Ukraine, we support you. We'll slap a bumper sticker on the old Prius and shoot you a thumbs up and whatever. No more money, no more weapons. We're not a part of this. We ain't got no skin in the game, son. This is what Poland said, basically. And they've opened that door and they've provided that off ramp for other countries to get out of this. All right. If the United States decides tomorrow it doesn't want to be a part of a world war, it can follow Poland and they can say, look, Poland's right on this. We don't want to become collateral damage. Of course, they're not going to, but I'm saying some of your other countries, again, I'm looking heavily at Germany, or we're going to see a false flag that triggers World War III because bankers, man, bankers be shady. This is opinion. All right. Yeah. Don't get the messenger here, but this is opinion. A lot of people don't understand how powerful these bankers are and what links they will go to keep that power and install or, either install a world order or maintain the world order. I personally believe, again, opinion on my part and speculation, but I've studied it quite a bit. I personally think that world bankers were behind a certain event that happened in New York City in 2001. All right, I'm just saying. Um, so they will go to any lengths, in my opinion, and they're not above causing a false flag to trigger a war. Um, if you look at it critically and you study it throughout history, you almost always have a world war and a Great Depression, global depression. You almost always have them like this intertwined. They're married together almost. Globalists need to hide the global depression that is coming. All right. I'm talking economically right now. It's going to happen. A lot of damage was done during the pandemic. As I said back then, and I maintain this, I think that it was a controlled demolition back during the pandemic. A lot of theft took place, a lot of transferring of wealth, if you will. Now they need a reason to hide it. Um, and I think that they have been pushing for war for a very long time. They're trying to get these two sides to go. And as I've said here previously, Russia is not taking the bait. Russia is playing the long game because I think that they understand bankers need a reason and they need one fast. And if I'm correct on that, you're probably going to see a false flag, a major one somewhere. It may not be here in the United States. Matter of fact, this assassination, if that's what it was, may have been a false flag or an attempt to set off World War III. Um, but they need this war, period. They need a scapegoat to say, hey, we lost this money because of this. All right. We lost it because of this. Um, if countries wise up, they're going to follow Poland. They're going to take the off ramp. But even then, even if we manage to avoid World War III, and thank you, Poland, because I'm trying to avoid World War III, we're still going to see the worst economic collapse, one of the worst in human history, if not the worst, because globally economies have been gutted. All right. There are a few countries that are kind of sort of doing okay, but grand scheme of things globally, and the damage has already been done. The US military seems to know that something is coming. They are swap Millie. Milli Vanilli, he's on his way out, I think at the end of the month, if I'm not mistaken. Our top generals are being swapped out, and the generals that are being put there, to their credit, they have a very good service record. It seems like they know warfare, but we'll see. Hopefully we won't, but, we may see. And there's major recruiting efforts going on. In case you've missed those commercials and things and the billboards and the radio ads, they're all over the place. They cannot get people here in the US to sign up for military service fast enough. Yes, there's a shortfall on soldiers as it is, but I'm telling you, they seem to know that something is coming up soon. Seems like sparkly socks. It almost seems like he accused the Indian government in order to piss them off on purpose and kind of push them toward China. I mean, it almost seems like that because 2 days. What kind of investigation takes 2 days when you're getting into the highest level of government office? 2 days, and then to not release information. It almost feels like this move was orchestrated behind a curtain somewhere. They're saying, we could do this. You're in Canada. You could accuse India. Now, the speculation on my part, obviously, but you could accuse India. You could piss them off, and then we could lure them away from the West. Why? Because in many ways, India reminds me of the United States in the mid 1900s. All right. Now, not in every way, not every parallel lines up. But again, they're becoming the newest world superpower. Not China, not Russia, not the United States, certainly not North Korea, India. India is the one that is tracking the most population. India is the one that is spending insane amounts of money on its military. They're becoming very modernized. India, in much the same way America did back in the mid 1900s, around World War II or shortly before even, they don't rely on a lot of imports. Most of their stuff happens at home. Most of their stuff is nationalized. They can survive without imports, and that's the way we used to be. We can't survive without imports now unless we turn around and start nationalizing everything. They're on their way up, whereas we and other countries are on our way down a peg or two, I think. So y'all tell me, are we going to see an off ramp and countries begin to take this off ramp, and are we going to head into essentially what is a global great depression, or are we going to see a major false flag that is going to push a lot of countries that are sort of on the fence into World War III? Y'all let me know what you think in the comments, please. Again, over on the rundown, we ran this poll. 94% of the poll during the rundown said we're about to see a false flag. Are y'all getting that vibe too? Let me know. Again, drop comments because they'll be covered tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on episode 2 of the rundown. Y'all take care and God bless.